I thought I misheard him. The wrench nearly slipped from my hand, clattering against the concrete floor of the shop. I looked up from the engine I'd been working on for the past hour, wiping the grease from my fingers with the same red rag I'd been using for the better part of 3 decades. What did you just say? My son David stood in the doorway of Richardson's Auto Repair, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the bay doors. At 40 years old, he looked like a stranger in his pressed suit and leather shoes that had probably never seen a day of honest work. His wife Monica hovered behind him, her arms crossed, that pinched expression on her face that I'd come to recognize over the past 5 years of their marriage. I said, "It's time, Dad." David's voice was gentle, the way you'd speak to a child. "You're 67. You've been doing this since before I was born. Don't you think you've earned a rest?" The shop hummed with the familiar sounds that had been the soundtrack of my adult life. The oscillating fan in the corner, the radio playing classic rock at low volume, the occasional ping of cooling metal. This place had been mine since 1988, built piece by piece with my late wife Sarah. Every tool on that wall, every piece of equipment, every square foot of this property, we'd earned it together. Earned a rest, I repeated slowly, setting down the wrench on my workbench. That's an interesting way to put it. Monica stepped forward, and I saw her exchange a quick glance with David. That look told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a casual suggestion. This was planned. "Robert," she said, using my first name in that way that always felt too familiar. "We've been talking, and we really think it's time for you to consider retirement. You're working too hard for a man your age. What if something happens? What if you get hurt?" "I appreciate the concern," I said, keeping my voice level. "But I feel fine. Doc says my ticker's strong, blood pressure's good. I'm not going anywhere." "But that's just it, Dad." David moved closer, his expensive shoes clicking on the oil-stained floor. "You shouldn't have to worry about any of that. You should be enjoying your golden years, traveling, relaxing, not breaking your back under cars." I'd been working on a '68 Mustang that morning, a restoration job for old Tom Patterson down on Maple Street. Tom and I went back 40 years, ever since we were young men starting out. I ran my hand along the Mustang's fender, feeling the smooth primer beneath my palm. "And what happens to the shop?" I asked quietly. That's when I saw it. The flash of excitement in David's eyes, quickly masked. Monica's lips twitched into what might have been a smile before she caught herself. "Well," David said, pulling out his phone and tapping at the screen. "Monica and I have been looking into that. The location is prime, right on Commercial Avenue, close to the new development they're building. We think we could really do something special with this place." "Do something special," I echoed. "Modernize it," Monica chimed in. "Get rid of all this old equipment. Maybe turn it into one of those quick service places. You know, oil changes, tire rotations. Efficient, clean. None of this messy restoration work that takes weeks." The Mustang under my hand had been in my shop for 3 months. Tom wasn't paying me a fortune for it, maybe enough to cover parts and a little labor. But Tom's grandson was getting married next spring, and Tom wanted to give him something meaningful. This car had been Tom's first vehicle, the one he'd taught his own son to drive in. Now it would go to the next generation. That's what this shop had always been about. It wasn't about quick oil changes and efficiency. It was about trust, about legacy, about doing things right, even when it took longer. "I see," I said. Sarah's photo still hung on the wall behind my desk, right next to our business license and the first dollar we'd ever earned. She'd been gone for 8 years now, taken by cancer that moved faster than either of us could accept. In that photo, she was 29, standing in front of this very building the day we'd bought it. The sign hadn't even been hung yet. We were so young, so full of dreams. We'd built this place from nothing. Sarah handled the books, managed the customers, ordered parts. I did the work, trained apprentices, built a reputation for honesty in a business that didn't always value it. We talked about David taking over one day, back when he was a teenager, back when he'd spend summers here learning to change oil and rotate tires. But David had gone to college, studied business, got himself a corporate job downtown. He'd met Monica at some networking event. They lived in a townhouse in the new development on the north side, the kind of place where everything was beige and perfect and identical. We're not saying you have to decide today, David continued, pocketing his phone. But Monica and we've been thinking about our future, about our kids' future. He paused meaningfully. We want to make sure we're set up for success, you know? And this property. Dad, do you have any idea what this land is worth? There it was. The truth, finally showing its face. I've got a pretty good idea, I said. Got the property appraised last year for insurance purposes. I didn't mention that the appraisal had come back at just over $2 million. The building itself wasn't worth much. It was old, needed work. But the land, situated at the corner of Commercial and Fifth, right in the path of the city's expansion eastward, was worth a fortune. Monica's eyes lit up. See? So you understand. You're sitting on a gold mine here, Robert. You could sell this place, take the money, buy yourself a nice condo somewhere warm, Florida, maybe, Arizona, somewhere you could really enjoy your retirement. And the two of you would help me with this decision, I said slowly. Of course, David smiled. We'd handle everything. The sale, the paperwork, finding you a place. You wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Tried to find the boy I'd raised in this man standing before me. The kid who used to ride his bike to the shop after school, who'd sit in the office doing homework while Sarah and I worked. The teenager who'd helped me install the new hydraulic lift, who'd been so proud when we finished. When had he changed? Or had I just been too busy to notice? I need to think about it, I said finally. Relief washed over both their faces. They thought they'd won. Take your time, Dad, David said, clapping me on the shoulder. We just want what's best for you. They left in Monica's white SUV, probably already making plans for what they'd do with $2 million. I stood in the empty shop for a long time after they'd gone, the silence pressing in around me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed in the house Sarah and I had bought 35 years ago, staring at the ceiling fan making its slow rotations. The sheets beside me were cold, always cold now, would always be cold. Sarah would have known what to do. She'd always been better at reading people, at seeing the truth beneath the surface. But I knew what she would have said. I could almost hear her voice, warm and certain. Bobby, that's not your son talking. That's fear and greed. Our boy is still in there somewhere. Was he? I wanted to believe that. But the man who'd stood in my shop that afternoon hadn't asked about my well-being. Hadn't asked if I was happy. Hadn't asked what I wanted. He talked about efficiency and modernization and property values. Over the next few weeks, David and Monica came by the shop regularly. Always together, I noticed. Always with new arguments for why I should retire. Dad, we looked into those retirement communities. There's a great one near Tampa. They have a golf course, a pool. You'd love it. Robert, I was talking to our financial advisor. He says at your age, you really should be thinking about liquidating assets. It's the smart move. Dad, what about your health? What if you fall and nobody's around? What if something happens? Every visit, the message was the same. You're old. You're a burden. You're sitting on something valuable that you're too senile to appreciate. I kept working. Mrs. Chen's Honda needed a new transmission. The Reverend's truck needed brake work. Young Jamie Rodriguez brought in his first car, a beat-up Civic that needed everything. And I spent 3 Saturdays teaching him how to do basic maintenance himself, just like I'd done for dozens of kids over the years. But something had shifted. I found myself looking at the shop differently, seeing it through David's eyes. The equipment was old. Sure, the building needed paint. The floors were stained with 3 decades of oil and grease. To my son, this place probably looked like a relic, something from a bygone era that needed to be swept away for something newer, shinier, more profitable. To me, it was home. It was a Tuesday morning in October when Marcus Williams stopped by. Marcus had been my apprentice 15 years ago, a kid from the East Side who needed a chance. I'd trained him, taught him everything I knew. Now he ran his own shop on the other side of town, smaller than mine but doing good work. Mr. Richardson, he said, leaning against my workbench. I heard something I didn't like. Heard your boy's been pressuring you to sell this place. Word traveled fast in the auto repair community. We all knew each other, looked out for each other. He thinks I should retire, I said, not denying it. Marcus shook his head. Man, this shop is an institution. You can't just shut it down. Half the people in this city have had their cars worked on here at some point. You've got a reputation. Reputations don't pay the bills when you're gone, I said. And David's got a point about some things. I'm not getting any younger. So, don't work alone, Marcus said. Take on a partner. Hell, Mr. Richardson, if you wanted to sell, I'd buy it myself. Keep it running the way it should be run. I looked at him, surprised. You're serious? Dead serious. I've been thinking about expanding. This location is perfect, and I'd want to keep the name Richardson's Auto Repair. It means something in this town. That night, I thought about Marcus's offer, thought about David's pressure, thought about Sarah and what she'd want me to do. The next morning, David called. Dad, Monica and I want to take you to dinner on Friday. There's someone we want you to meet. Who? A commercial real estate agent. Just to talk, get some numbers. No pressure. No pressure. That phrase had become their favorite. Friday came. We met at some upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the portions are tiny and the prices are obscene. The real estate agent, a woman named Cheryl with shark eyes and a practiced smile, spent the entire meal talking about market values and optimal timing and buyer interest. With a property like yours, Mr. Richardson, in this market, we'd be looking at a competitive bidding situation. I could have it listed and sold within 60 days. David and Monica hung on every word. I pushed food around my plate and thought about Marcus's offer. What's your timeline? Cheryl asked me directly. I met her eyes. I haven't decided to sell. The table went quiet. David's fork clattered against his plate. Dad, we talked about this. No, I said calmly. You talked about it. I listened, but I never agreed to anything. Monica's face flushed. Robert, be reasonable. You can't keep working like this forever. What happens when you can't do it anymore? When you're too old or too sick? Who's going to take care of the business then? That's my concern, I said. Not yours. It's our concern when it affects our future. Monica shot back, then caught herself. But too late. Your future, I repeated slowly. I see. David tried to recover. Dad, that's not what she meant. We're just trying to help you plan. I stood up, pulled out my wallet, dropped 3 20s on the table. I appreciate dinner. I'll find my own way home. I left them sitting there, and I didn't look back. That Sunday, I called Marcus. Your offer still stand? Absolutely. Let's talk numbers. We met at a diner on Monday morning, just the two of us. Over coffee and pancakes, we worked out a deal. Marcus couldn't afford $2 million, who could? But he could afford a fair price for a working business, and more importantly, he'd preserve what Sarah and I had built. He'd keep the name, keep the reputation, keep the relationships with our longtime customers. I want to stay on part-time, I told him. Not every day, but a few days a week. Keep my hand in. That okay? Marcus grinned. Mr. Richardson, I'd be honored. You can work as much or as little as you want. Hell, you could just come by and drink coffee and give advice if that's what you wanted. We shook hands on it. I called my lawyer that afternoon. The paperwork took 3 weeks. I didn't tell David. Didn't tell Monica. Every time they called, I dodged their questions, said I was still thinking about it, let them believe they were wearing me down. David stopped by the shop the day before the sale was set to close. Dad, I've been thinking. Maybe Monica and I were pushing too hard. We just want you to be happy and safe. I appreciate that, I said, not looking up from the brake job I was working on. So, have you given any more thought to our conversation? About retirement? I have, I said. Made a decision, actually. His face lit up. Really? That's great. When can we meet with Cheryl again? You can meet with her whenever you want, I said, straightening up, wiping my hands. But I won't be there. His smile faltered. What do you mean? I made a decision about the shop, about my future, and I decided what's best for me. And what's that? He asked it carefully, like he already knew he wouldn't like the answer. I'm selling the business to Marcus Williams. The paperwork gets signed tomorrow. He's taking over ownership, keeping the name, keeping the reputation. I'll stay on part-time, work when I want to, take days off when I feel like it. David's face went pale. Marcus Williams? Your old apprentice? Dad, that's insane. This property is worth millions. The property is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, I interrupted. And I chose to sell it to someone who'll treat it right. Someone who understands what this place means. This is crazy! David's voice rose. You can't just give away our inheritance like this. Your inheritance. I let the words hang in the air. David, this was never your inheritance. This is my life's work, mine and your mother's. We built this with our own hands, our own sweat. You didn't want it when I was offering to teach you the business. You wanted college, wanted a corporate job, wanted something better. I respected that choice. But the money isn't yours, I said quietly. It never was. I'm 67 years old, son. I've got another 20 years if I'm lucky, maybe 30. I need to live on something. And when I'm gone, if there's anything left, it'll go where I decide it goes, not where you expect it to go. Monica's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come in. This is unbelievable. You're being manipulated by that Marcus person. He's taking advantage of you. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. Taking advantage? Marcus is paying me a fair price for a working business. He's giving me the option to keep working, to stay connected to something I love. What exactly were you offering me, Monica? A condo in Florida and a pat on the head? We were offering you a comfortable retirement, she snapped. No, I said. You were offering yourselves a comfortable future, bought with the sale of my life's work. There's a difference. David's hands were shaking. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done for me? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. David, you're my son. I love you. But let's be honest about the last few months. How many times did you visit before this started? How many times did you call just to check in? Just to talk? And the moment you found out what this property was worth, suddenly you were worried about my health, my age, my future. That's not fair, isn't it? I met his eyes. Tell me the truth. If this property was worthless, if it was just an old garage shop on a dead-end street, would you be here right now pushing me to retire? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew. The sale closes tomorrow at 10 a.m., I said. You're welcome to come by after. Meet Marcus officially. See how things are going to work. But the decision is made. They left without another word. Monica's heels clicked sharply against the concrete, an angry staccato rhythm. David didn't look back. I stood in the quiet shop for a long time after they'd gone. Sarah's picture smiled down at me from the wall. Did I do the right thing? I asked her photo, my voice barely a whisper. Am I being stubborn? Spiteful? But I knew she'd understand. She'd always understood. The shop wasn't just a building or a piece of property. It was our dreams made solid. It was every sacrifice we'd made. Every late night, every satisfied customer, every kid we'd helped along the way. You don't measure that kind of thing in market value. The next morning, I met Marcus and the lawyers at the title company. We signed the papers. Marcus wrote me a check that was enough to live comfortably, to keep the house, to maybe take a trip or two. Not $2 million, but enough. More than enough. Welcome to Richardson's Auto Repair, I told him when it was done. Hope you're ready for the work. Marcus grinned. Been ready for 15 years, Mr. Richardson. Been ready since the day you taught me how to rebuild my first transmission. David called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. Finally, I answered. It's done, Dad? His voice was tight. You really did it? I did. Silence on the line. Then, I don't understand. That money could have set us up for life. Could have given the kids opportunities. You have opportunities, I said gently. You have a good job, a nice home. Your kids have everything they need. What you wanted wasn't opportunity, David. It was a windfall. There's a difference. You chose a stranger over your own family, he said. And I could hear the hurt now, beneath the anger. Marcus isn't a stranger. He's the closest thing I have to a successor in this business. And you're still my family, David. That doesn't change. But being family doesn't mean you get to dictate how I live my life, or what I do with my own property. I thought you'd want us to have it. I thought you'd want to help us. I've been helping you your whole life, I said. Paid for your college, gave you money when you needed it, co-signed your first apartment lease. I've always been there, David, but I won't let you sell off my life's work just to make things easier for yourself. More silence. Then, quieter. When did I become this person, Dad? When did I start seeing you as an obstacle instead of my father? The question caught me off guard. It was the most honest thing he'd said in months. I don't know, son, I said softly. But maybe this is your chance to figure it out. We hung up after that. I don't know what happens next between us. Maybe we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we won't. David and Monica have their own lives to live, their own choices to make. I can't control that, but I can control this. 3 days a week now, I drive to Richardson's Auto Repair. Still Richardson's. Always Richardson's. And I work alongside Marcus. We've hired 2 young apprentices. Kids who remind me of Marcus when he was starting out. Kids who need a chance. The shop is busier than ever. Marcus has brought in some of his old customers, and our longtime clients are happy to see the place under new management that respects the old ways. We're not modern or efficient or streamlined. We're honest and thorough, and we take the time to do things right. Last week, old Tom Patterson came by to pick up his Mustang. The restoration took 4 months total. But when Tom saw that car, tears in his eyes, talking about his grandson's upcoming wedding, I knew it was worth it. Marcus charged him half what the job was worth. When I raised an eyebrow, Marcus just shrugged. Learn from the best, he said. Some nights, after the shop closes, I sit in my office and look at Sarah's picture. I think about the life we built together, the dreams we shared. I think about David and the relationship we've lost, at least for now. I wonder if I'm foolish, if I should have taken the easy money, bought that condo in Florida, lived out my days in comfortable retirement. But then I think about Marcus's face when he signed those papers, about the apprentices we're training, about Tom Patterson and his grandson's wedding, about every car that comes through these bay doors, every customer who trusts us with their vehicle, their safety, their investment. This isn't about revenge. It never was. Monica might think I did this to spite them, to teach them some kind of lesson. David might think I'm being stubborn, or senile, or foolish. But this is about choosing myself, about deciding that my life, my work, my legacy, these things matter on their own terms, not just as potential assets to be liquidated when convenient. I'm 67 years old. I've got grease under my fingernails and an ache in my back most mornings. I could be sitting on a golf course in Tampa right now, living off the sale of my property, watching my savings account dwindle year by year. Instead, I'm here, in this shop that Sarah and I built, working alongside someone who values what we created, teaching the next generation how to do things right. Not efficiently, not quickly, but right. Maybe someday David will understand. Maybe he won't. Either way, I made my choice. And when my time comes, when I stand before Sarah again in whatever comes next, I'll be able to look her in the eye and say, I didn't let them erase what we built together. That's worth more than $2 million. That's worth everything.